let's get started. We're going to go to the Genesis narrative. So, we're going to start off in Genesis chapter 5. Let's see here. Genesis 5, 28 through 29. And it says, And Lamech lived 188 years and begot a son. Okay, let me make sure I'm picking up. Okay, I am. And he called his name Noe, saying, This one will cause us to cease from our works, and from the toils of our hand, and from the earth, which the Lord God has cursed. So understand that Noah, the Septuagint got Noe, a Noah. Noah was the individual that was supposed to bring rest. In fact, his name means to rest. We're going to find out later. But when Noah came on the scene, understand it said, This one, dealing with Noah, will cause us to cease from our works. So that is a rest right there, right? To cease from the works means to rest. And from the toils of our hands and from the earth, which was dealing with the curse that was given to Adam, which the Lord God has cursed. So Noah had this mission that when he came upon the scene, he was going to be the one that brought forth a rest on earth and a easing up of the curse that the Lord has given. So this is one of Noah's attributes. This is one of Noah's goals. This is what Noah kind of stood for during the time that he was, according to Moses, alive. So now we're going to go to the Jubilees narrative, the book of Jubilees. We know found at the Dead Sea Scroll, and this one is the Yahweh name restored edition of the book of Jubilees. Right? We're going to go to page 12 of the book of Jubilees. This is going to be Jubilees 4, verses 26 through 28. So now, this is what the book of Jubilees states. Let me make it a little bit bigger. For Yahweh has four places on the earth: the Garden of Eden, which that's actually is going to be also the heaven in the heavenly place. But anyway, the Garden of Eden and the Mount of the East, and this mountain on which you are this day, Mount Sinai, and Mount Zion, which will be sanctified in the new creation for a sanctification of the earth. So we have the book of Jubilees explaining that things was not going to, the things that they receive in present day, dealing with Mount Sinai, and the new creation, that wasn't what it's going to be about. And the new creation is going to be about Mount Zion. And this is what you find in the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, as well as the book of Revelation. I think it's 14 and etc. How the 144,000 was on Mount Zion. And you could actually find it in the book of Isaiah and etc. Also, these things dealing with Mount Zion. So, anyway, through it will the earth be sanctified from all its guilt and uncleanness throughout the generations of the world. So through the on Mount Sinai, they got the law. But on Mount Zion, they was going to receive something that was going to be sanctified. And it was going to take all on that mount. It was going to be the sanctification of which occurred from that mount. All of the guilt and uncleanliness was going to be taken away throughout the world. So I'm going to take that into consideration. Verse 27. And in the 14th Jubilee, Methuselah took unto himself a wife, Edna, the daughter of Azriel, the daughter of his father's brother, in the 3rd week, in the 1st year of this week. And he begat a son and called his name Lamech. And in the 15th Jubilee, in the 3rd week, Lamech took to himself a wife, and her name was Bethanas, the daughter of Baruchiel, the daughter of his father's brother. And in this week she bare him a son, and he called his name Noah, saying, This one will comfort me for my trouble and all my work, and for the ground which Yahweh has cursed. So notice in the book of Jubilees now, it stated that Noah, the reason why he was given the name Noah, he was going to be the one that comfort Israel, as well as, this Israel, but, this is the Lord actually speaking also. But this one will comfort me for my trouble and all my work, and for the ground which Yahweh has cursed. So we have Noah also being the one that brings comfort. Very important. So now we're going to go to the book of Jubilees, chapter 6. Jubilees 6, we're going to read 1 and 2. Yahweh Almighty finished all his works and all that he created, and kept Shabbat on the 7th day, and hallowed it for all ages, and appointed it as a sign for all his works. For on the first day he created the heavens which are above, and the earth and the waters, and all the spirits which serve before him, the Malachim of the presence, and the Malachim of sanctification, and the Malachim of the spirit of fire, and the Malachim of the spirit of the winds, and the Malachim of the spirit of the clouds, and of darkness, and of snow, and of hail, and of hoarfrost, and the Malachim of the voices, and of the thunder, and of the lightning, and the Malachim of the spirits of cold, and of heat, and of winter, and of spring, and of autumn, and of summer, and of all the spirits of his creatures which are in the heavens and on the earth. He created the abysses and the darkness, eventide and night, and the light, dawn, and day, which he had prepared in the knowledge of his hearts. So let me make sure. I see what happened there. That's Jubilee chapter 2. Maybe the Lord thought y'all needed to understand that also. But I'm actually supposed to be on page 15. All right, so Jubilee 6. Once again, maybe the Lord wanted y'all to know that the darkness had spirits about them, and etc. And we can read, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth, and earth without form and void, and he separated the lightning from the darkness according to Jubilees. These are types of spirits. So anyway, Jubilee 6, 1, verses 1 and 2. So we're back on track now. This is dealing with Noah. And this is what Jubilee states. And on the new month, on the 3rd month, when he came from the ark and built an altar on that mountain. Sorry. And he made atonement for the earth. So we got here that Noah made atonement for the earth. Everything that got destroyed, Noah was the one that made atonement for that, and took a kid and made atonement by its blood for all the guilt of the earth. For everything that had been on it had been destroyed, save those that were in the ark with it. So also, and shalom, brother. Let me go ahead and read this. Sorry about that. Shalom, brother. Hope you having a fantastic night.
Yes, sir. What's going on, brother? You all right?
Yes, sir. Just diving into this lesson of Noah, and then we're gonna work our way to show how this is all about the Messiah. How about yourself?
Okay, okay. Everything good, brother. Just doing a little work right now. Just rolling on this highway right now. That's all.
Well, yes, sir. I hopefully I don't put you to sleep, but I'm gonna try to
No,
dive
sir.
into this.
No, sir. No, sir.
Well, yes, sir. I'm gonna dive into the information, and like I said, I you know how I do. I stop in the middle, see if you want to say anything, or anybody else in the room want to say anything, and if not, I continue.
All right. Sound good.
Yes, sir. All right. So now we have Noah. What all did Noah do? Noah, he was supposed to bring rest to the earth. Noah was supposed to bring comfort to the earth. And now Noah made an atonement for the earth. So these are all the things that Noah done, right? So there's something that's called the Genesis Apocrypha. We know that it was found at the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And it's pretty much an alternate rendering of Genesis. And we know that the works themselves is very fragmented in nature. But we're going to see through some of the fragments if we can make out some of the things. So let's see here. We're going to go to page 52 of the Genesis Apocrypha. And this is going to be, let's see if I can find it, column 10. It says, once again, it's very fragmented. So I'm going to just go through and see if we can actually make out some of the stuff. It says, great, vacant, then I, or vacant, then I blessed the Lord of all, whom from me, and kept safe, to Noah, words of them and we know it's very fragmented. So let's go to the next one. In the night, dots and all these dots. Then I went. Then lines 4 through 7 is missing. So here we go. 8. Now you all go and give praise and glory for the Creator. And then fragments until all and listen to fragments, all of you, your Lord, and fragments to the King of all ages, forever and ever, unto all ages. Then we got big skips and fragments, as you can tell. Uh, then it was on the earth. This has got to be talking about the flood, and he took from then fragments, finding for in the water fragments upon fragments. The ark rested on one of the mountains of Ararat, and the eternal fire. So we have like fire introduced right there. I mean, it's fragmented, but we see that you have an internal fire being introduced where the ark was resting. And once you go through the book of Enoch, you find out that according to the ancient Israelite mindset, the people were being judged by fire in the underworld, while the earth was being judged by water in the corner realm. So that's what was happening. And we can see that right here also. And the eternal fire, dot. And this is where I was wanting to get at. 13. So we got a big fragment, right? But it says right here, and I atone for all the earth in its entirety. To begin, the he goat was, and then fragment, placed upon fragment, first, and after it came upon fragment, and I burned the fat upon the second fragment, then fragment, all of their blood to the base of the altar, and I poured it out, and all of their flesh I burned upon the altar. So, right here, once again, the reason why I read that was to show that Noah gave an atonement sacrifice for the earth. So understand that before Moses came on the scene, according to the Genesis Apocryphon as well as the Torah and the Book of Jubilees, which came out of the Dead Sea community also, the understanding of giving an atonement sacrifice was around before Moses was born. So this would make perfect sense in the Genesis narrative when Cain brought forth fruits of the earth and Abel brought forth the firstling. It would make sense that they were given an atonement offering. And this would make sense why Cain's offering was rejected, and it was told that if he did do not well, sin will lie at his door, and etc. So, without blood, there is no atonement. So this would make sense also. While uh, Adam and Eve, when they tried to cover themselves with figs, it wasn't good enough to cover their shame. The Lord used skins from an animal to cover their shame, which actually demonstrates something had to die, which it's a blood atonement. So it was already understood how atonement sacrifice worked. So Noah, after destruction of everything on earth, if you take it as the literal rendering, the flat reading, which you can take it as that, because there's three different levels, y'all know that I do dealing with this. But on the first level of flat reading, Noah, after everything was destroyed, Noah gave an atonement. So let's continue to find out a little bit more of Noah. So we're going to actually go now into the book of Enoch. Because dealing with Noah, if we stick to just the KJV or stick to the Bible we have, there's not a lot of things spoken of about Noah. But when you go to the New Testament and etc., and you read about these watchers, or you read about these angels that left their habitation, or if you read about as in the days of Noah and etc., there was, what are they talking about? If they only knew those first few words of chapters, the chapters, what, 6 through 8 or 9 or 10, if that's the only thing they knew about Noah, then why are they pulling so much different information about him? And it's common sense to, once you go through all of the literature, that there was a plethora of stories about Noah. So this is why they could pull from the understanding, or this is why they could keep talking about Noah. So what we need to do, we need to go into some of this ancient literature that they had or similar to they had to understand all what happened dealing with Noah and the time period that Noah lived in. And this is what we're going to do tonight. We're going to show you that there's a lot of things going on in the days of Noah. So first of all, we're going to go to First Enoch. We're going to read. We're going to go to chapter 68. If you got the PDF like I do, it's going to be on page 119. So let me get there. This is uh, Enoch 68 and 1. Let me make sure. Yeah, Enoch 68 and 1. It states, and after that, my grandfather Enoch, so according to uh, First Enoch, Noah met his grandfather Enoch, and he spoke to his grandfather Enoch. So we know that Enoch was translated because of his righteousness and etc. Noah obviously got some of this righteousness from Enoch. But anyway, and after that, my grandfather Enoch gave me the explanations of all the secrets in the book of the parables which have been given to him, and he put them together for me in the words of the book of the parables. So first thing we got to understand, according to the first century Jews, or the BC era Jews, the Dead Sea Scroll community, Noah himself was in possession of a book that Enoch gave to him. And the book Enoch gave to him was actually given to Enoch. So these were supposed to be representation of heavenly wisdom passed on through man. Enoch got it from the angels. And then we find out that Enoch gave it to Noah. And once you go to the book of Jubilees, it says the book of Jubilees was also given by the angels. So this was an understanding that there was heavenly knowledge given to man by angels in book form and etc. But anyway, this was a book of the parables, which is found in the book of Enoch. So a lot of people take the book of Enoch to be carnal, and then they try to dispute it and etc. Understand, it's a book of parables. The things are parabolic in nature. So when you see the New Testament using the same themes found in the book of Enoch, if the book of Enoch is parabolic, then the New Testament is using it in a parabolic notion or a parabolic meaning. And I know, like, a lot of people, when they get the New Testament, they try to make it be as carnal as they can, not understanding that some of these things in the New Testament are meant to be taken parabolically so you can actually understand the information, the deeper information given to it. So this is what we have here. The explanation of all the Enoch gave me the explanations. So he deciphered, right? Enoch gave me the explanations of all the secrets in the book of the parables which had been given to him, and he put together for me in the words of the book of the parables. So according to first Enoch, Noah got this information, right? So then we're going to go to first Enoch, uh, found on page 217. So this is going to be Enoch. Make sure I'm on the right page. Let's see here. 106. Enoch 106. So this is about the birth of Noah. Now, we got to pay close attention dealing with the birth of Noah. Now, see, do some of this sound familiar to you? Enoch 106, the fragment from the book of Noah. Make sure I'm still online. I am. Okay. And after some days, my son Methuselah took a wife for his son Lamech, and she became pregnant by him and bore a son. And his body was white as snow, and the red as the blooming of a rose. And the hair of his head and his long curls were white as wool, and his eyes beautiful. Verse 2. And when he had opened his eyes, he lit up the whole house like the sun, and the whole house was very bright. So now understand the description of Noah from the ancient Israelites. It said when he was born, his body was white as snow and red as the blooming of a rose. His hair, the hair of his head, and his long curls were white as wool, and his eyes beautiful. And when he opened his eyes, the whole house lit up like the sun. The whole house was very bright. So when you go to, let's go to the Bible. When we go to the Bible, right? We go to the book of Revelation. I believe it will be, if it's not chapter 1, it's chapter 2. But let's see here. Revelation 1. I'm going to read 13 and 14. And in the midst of the seven candlesticks, one like the Son of Man, clothed with the garment down to his foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. So now let's go to Daniel chapter 7, and let's see if we can find a description here. Let's see here. Daniel 7 and 9. I beheld until the thrones were set, and the Ancient of Days sat, and his raiment was white as snow, and the hair of his head as pure wool. His throne was a flame of fire, and his wheels burning fire. And I think we can actually find it also maybe in Daniel 8. If not Daniel 8, then Daniel 10. Let's see here. Let's see here. Yeah, Daniel 10, verse number 5 and 6. And I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a man clothed in linen, and his loins were girt with gold of Opaz, and his body was as Tharsis, and his face was as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and legs of the appearing of shining brass, and the voice of his words were as the voice of multitudes. So, what am I showing here? According to ancient Israel, Noah looked just like the Ancient of Days. Noah resembled the Son of Man. Noah resembled the Messiah. So let me say it again. When the Messiah was in his resurrected form, when he was saw in Revelation chapter 1, and when he was saw as the Ancient of Days in Daniel chapter 7, as well as the angel in Daniel chapter 10. They all look the same exact way. And we find out that according to the ancient Israelites, Noah looked that same way when he was on earth. So, how they looked in their spiritual form, that's how Noah looked in his earthly form. So, now let's continue reading to show you this, to demonstrate this, right? So, once we go back to the book of Enoch, notice what happens here. So he got his eyes lifted up. It lit up the whole house. The house was very bright. In other words, his eyes were like the lamps. It was like the fire and lamp. Same as that description. The hair on his head, white like wool. His body was white as snow, as red as a rose, aka like burning brass. So let's keep reading. Verse 3. And on it he levitated, arose in the hands of the midwife. So when he was born, he rose up. When the midwife got him, he rose up. He arose, which is a state of what we call resurrection. So he arose in the hands of the midwife. And look what else he did. He opened his mouth and conversed with the Lord of righteousness. So could you imagine You have a baby being born, and when the baby comes out, his eyes kind of resemble fire. His body looks like it's burning. And on top of that, when the nurse have him, he rises up out of her arms and begin to speak to the Lord. What would you do in that situation? But anyway, so verse 4, and his father, Lamech, was afraid of him and fled. Of course, anybody would have done that. I would have done that. And came to his father Methuselah. And he said unto him, I have begotten a strange son, different and unlike man, and resembling the sons of the God of heaven. And his nature is different, and he is not like us. And his eyes are as the rays of the sun, and his face is glorious. So now, what happened? Y'all remember when we read about what happened to Moses when he went up on the mountain? He came down, his face was shining, and the children of Israel were freaked out about it, and he had to put that veil over his face because his face was shining in the glory. And then we have Paul talking about the glory also. But this is what Noah looked like from birth, right? And it said that he resembled the sons of the God of heaven. So it was understood that the glory, the shining, the brightness, and etc. That's what we know according to Ecclesiastes. On earth, it represents wisdom. When a person face shines, it represents heavenly wisdom. But here we have right now the understanding that the angels, the sons of God, they were bright in nature. They looked like burning brass in nature. They had their hair and their heads were white or shining like lightning, and etc. So this is the attributes of the sons of God. So this is what they look like in the beginning. And when Moses came down with the same attribute, Moses, but he lost it, and when Christ transfigured, he got the same attribute back. So this is a heavenly attribute. This explains the sons of God and the heavenly nature or the heavenly realm. This is what they look like. So, verse number 5. And it seems to me that he did not spring from me, but from the angels. And I fear that in the days a wonder may be performed on the earth. So he's like, hey, this can't be my son. I think he's the son of one of the angels. So it lets you know that the before the Lord took away the bright nature of people that could be seen with the visible eye, now can only be seen with the spiritual eye. Before the earth changed, right? And we're going to find out that the way that they looked back then, there's a reason why they don't look like that now. See, back then, they didn't have to be seen in vision form. As things progress, you only could see it in vision form or with your spiritual eye. And we're going to see why in just a second. And he says, and I fear that in his days, a wonder may be performed on the earth. And now, my father, this is verse 6, I am here to ask you and beg you that you may go to Enoch, our father, and learn from him the truth, for his dwelling is among the angels. So let's see how far I'm going to go down. I'm going to read more. And when Methuselah heard the words of his son, he came to me to the ends of the earth, for he had heard that I was there, and he cried aloud, and I heard his voice, and I came to him. And I said to him, behold, here am I, my son. Why have you come to me? And he answered and said, because of a great cause of anxiety have I come to you, and because of a disturbing vision have I approached. And now, my father, hear me. To Lamech, my son, there has been born a son, the like of whom there is none other. And his nature is not like man's nature. The color of his body is whiter than snow and redder than the bloom of a rose. So now understand, according to ancient Israel, this is something new that no man on earth before this had this type of look, which means that everyone else had to be dark in color. If everyone was already white or did not have no pigment, then it wouldn't have been strange to see an albino, because an albino kind of looks just like they did. But if everyone was dark in color, if everyone was quote unquote black, then it would make sense why they would freak out when a white or an albino, or however you want to look at it, son came out. It would make perfect sense. So let's keep reading. And his nature is not like man's nature. And the color of his body is whiter than snow and redder than the bloom of a rose. And the hair of his head is whiter than white wool. And his eyes are like the rays of the sun. And he opened his eyes, and the whole house lit up. And he levitated, arose in the hands of the midwife, and opened his mouth and blessed the Lord of heaven. And his father Lamech became afraid and fled to me, and did not believe that he was sprung from him, but that he was in the likeness of the angels of heaven. And now I have come to you that you may make known to me the truth. And I, Enoch, answered and said to him, listen to what Enoch's explanation is, just in case people want to know why come we can't see this no more. The Lord will do a new thing on the earth. And this I have already seen in a vision, and made known to you that in the generation of my father Jared, some of the angels of heaven violated the word of the Lord, and they commit sin and broke the law, and have had sex, united themselves with women, and committed sin with them, and have married some of them, and have had children by them. And they should produce on the earth giants, not according to the spirit, but according to the flesh. So understand, there's giants according to the spirit, and then there's giants according to the flesh. This is talking about giants according to the flesh. And there shall be a great punishment on the earth, and the earth shall be cleansed from all impurity. There shall come a great destruction over the whole earth, and there shall be a flood, a deluge, and a great destruction for 1 year. And this son who has been born to you shall be left on the earth, and his 3 children shall be saved with him. When all mankind that are on the earth shall die, and his son shall be saved. Let's see. All right, 2 more verses. And now make known to your son Lamech that he who has been born is in truth his son, and call his name Noah. For he shall be left to you, and he and his son shall be saved from the destruction which shall come on the earth on account of all the sin and all the unrighteousness, which shall be full completed on the earth in his days. And after that flood, there shall be more unrighteousness than that which was before done before on the earth. For I know the mysteries of the holy ones, for he, the Lord, has showed me and informed me, and I have read them in the heavenly tablets. So we find out that there was going to be a new thing done on earth, and a judgment, right? A judgment was going to come. The earth was going to be cleansed. All impurity was going to be taken away, and etc. But a new thing was going to happen on earth. When the old things was happening on earth, people could see the angels walking around. People could see how the angels was bright. They looked like shining brass, and etc. People could see this. But after the new thing happened on earth, and after the earth was destroyed and the cleansing happened, that type of sight left away. And then things like envision start coming forth. So that's the new thing. The old thing, they saw this. The new thing, they couldn't see it no more, but they only in vision form. But other things that I want to make known, right? What else was going to happen in the days of Noah? So we know Noah, he looked just like the Messiah. Looked just like the Messiah in all of his attributes. But what else was going to happen in the days of Noah? Well, let's read it here. And this son shall be born to you that should be left on the earth, and his three children shall be saved with him. When all mankind on the earth shall die, he and his son shall be saved. So we have a salvation of the relatives of Noah, being his sons, right? So the sons of Noah would be saved in the days of the judgment that was going to happen in the days of Noah. So you can look at that similarity with the Messiah. In the days of the Messiah, a judgment was going to occur, and his relatives, his brothers and sisters, the sons of God, were going to be saved while everyone else was going to be destroyed, right? And then we have here, for he shall be left to you, and his son shall be saved from the destruction, like the sons of God were saved from the destruction, which shall come on the earth on account of all the sin and all the unrighteousness, which what happened in the first century also, which shall be full completed on the earth in his days. And we find out that after that, more unrighteousness was going to be done on the earth, which happened to in the days of the Messiah. After all of those things happened, indeed, more unrighteousness did happen on the earth. So we can see how Noah was the prelude to Christ. Hopefully that's the right word. But Noah, he was the one that was the first Messiah-like character, and he had all the attributes of the Messiah that came in the last days. So the last thing we're going to look at before I open up and see if anyone want to say anything, the Genesis Apocryphon. Once again, we're just going to read column 6, 1 through 6. This is about Noah. It says, from infancy and through the uterus of she who bore me, I burst forth for uprightness. And when I emerged from my mother's womb, I was planted for righteousness. All of my days I conducted myself uprightly, continually walking in the paths of everlasting truth. For the Holy One had instructed me to, and then fragments, in the ways of the paths of truth, and to keep myself away from the highway of deceit, which led to everlasting darkness, and to consider whether I would fragment the Lord. So I girded my loins in the vision of truth and wisdom, and the robe of supplication, and then fragments, and it fragments all the passive violence, which I mean, I think it means I stayed away from all the passive violence. Then I, Noah, became a grown man. I held fast to righteousness and strengthened myself in wisdom. All of the attributes of the Messiah, we can clearly see that Noah was the first, according to Moses, was the first to have all of these attributes. And then the Messiah, starting the new heaven and earth, he was the first to have all of the attributes inside of the new heaven and earth. So when we're talking about doing the correct way, the things that he was supposed to do, once we leave from Abel to Seth to Abel to Enoch to Seth or it might be Seth Enoch. I can't remember right now. But then once we get to Noah, we find out that this whole path of righteousness and uprightness continue all the way down to the Messiah. So we have the correlation between Noah and the Messiah. So does anyone want to add anything before I continue on?
Man, I just wanted to say, it was pretty straight, man, because uh, Christ makes that correlation of how Noah was um, was preaching, and how um, and his coming will be. He makes that correlation that in the days of Noah, it'll be just like this, how his coming would be. And and it's amazing how that distinction flows together, how Noah is and how Christ is. And also I want to ask, the what you're reading, does it give a description of how Moses was when he was born? I mean, I know that's probably off topic, but I just want to ask that question.
No, sir. It don't tell how. It does not. But I can research it for later on and see. Um, well, I know it's in the book of Philo. It does, and etc. And the Josephus, but it does not in the what I got right now.
Okay, okay, that'll work.
And
But
that
it
actually
was
might be
just it was
something to.
yeah, it was just a just something that, because Moses had those same qualities, but his I haven't read about the birth of Noah the way his description is, the way you just stated and things like that. But we know that that's how Christ was, the white as snow, his hair like wool and things like that. So um, it's very key that we need to understand how, when Christ referenced Noah and things like that. So that makes, it makes it a lot easier to understand. What I'm saying, when Christ was on the scene and stuff like that.
Yes, sir, indeed, and in fact, we actually finna what you just brought up. We finna actually hit some of those points also. So yes, sir, indeed.
Okay, all right, you can go ahead, brother.
Yes, sir. So now, and I appreciate that, brother Demetrius. And if you guys have not, once again, make sure we follow the YouTube channels, subscribe, comment, like, share. You can dislike or whatever you want to do, but make sure the information actually get out there. So now, as brother Demetrius just stated, how Christ reflected back to Noah, we're actually finna go through that right now. We're going to go to the book of Luke, and it shows you how the Spirit bear witness. Because the brother, he has not seen none of my notes, and he went exactly to where I finna go to. So that shows you how we're on the same page. So all praises to the Most High indeed. So we're finna actually hit that right now. Luke 17, verse 25. It says, "But first." So this is talking about Christ and his coming, right? So once you go to 20 to 21, he described to the Pharisees how his kingdom was not going to come with observation. When no one going to say, see here or see there, because the kingdom of God was going to be within them and amongst them and around them. It was going to overtake them in all aspects. So he continues to talk about the kingdom coming and that being surrounded around judgment. So we're going to see this right here. So now he's going to give some of these analogies. Luke 17:25. It says, "But first," well, let's read 24. "For as lightning that lighteth out of one part under heaven, shineth unto the other part under heaven, so shall also the Son of Man be in his day. But first," so he's finna give an like an order. But first must he suffer many things. So he can't come yet. He got to suffer first. But first, he must suffer many things and be rejected of this generation. So Christ was explaining how the kingdom was going to come for it, like in a state of realization, when they was going to actually realize about every aspect of the kingdom, and how him coming and his judgment was going to be reflected upon their realization. But now he's telling them, before all of this stuff happened, before I come with my kingdom, before you actually understand all of the words that I'm breaking down to you and etc., first I must suffer many things and be rejected of this generation that I live in, which was the first century generation. But I'm here to tell you that that isn't anything new, because we're talking about Noah, right? So we're going to go to, let's go to Josephus, right? We're going to go to War of the Jews. Hold on, can't be the War of the Jews. Got to be Antiquity of the Jews. Give me 1 second. I don't even know I would have War of the Jews right there. Must have been writing fast. So let's go to Josephus, Antiquity of the Jews, right here. Book 1, Chapter 3, Section 1. So this is Josephus expounding on the information that he had dealing with Noah, right? From their old ancient traditions and etc. So this is Josephus, the first century Jew historian, also of the priestly lineage on his mother and father's side. He indeed was a priest. He also was an Essene for a time, and if I'm correctly, he was an Essene for a time, but also a Pharisee. So he has a lot of stake. He got a lot of stake, a lot of stock in the claim of knowing what he's talking about. He has receipts. But anyway, so let's go and see what he says about Noah. This right here, it says, let me make sure I got it on. Okay. But Noah was very uneasy at what they did, and being displeased at their conduct, persuaded them to change their dispositions and their acts for the better. But seeing they did not yield to him, but were slaves to their wicked pleasures, he was afraid they would kill him, together with his wife and children, and those they had married. So he departed out of that land. So as the Son of Man being rejected in those days, so was Noah rejected in his days. And so as the Son of Man in the first century taught and preached, and my bad, I didn't even make you guys a moderator, my bad. And so as Noah in his days preached regeneration and how they should change their dispositions, so did the Son of Man in his days preach regeneration, and how those in his preach regeneration, and how those in his generation should change their dispositions and acts for the better. And as Noah was afraid that they would kill him and his wife because of the way that they taught, the first century Jews actually killed the Messiah and So, and his wife per se, which was the church, they killed a lot of his wife and persecuted the rest for what he taught. So we can clearly see that Noah and the Messiah had the same mission. Noah was a reflection of the Messiah. What Noah went through in his generation, the Messiah went through in his generation. Noah was the first antitype, major antitype of the Messiah. So we're going to keep reading. So that was 1725. So the Messiah could have actually went through all of the understanding of what happened to Noah and say everything that Noah went through, I'm going to go through also. I'm just going to do it on a higher level. So now, verse 26 through 27. Let's see what else happened. And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. So then he made another statement. Just like the days of Noah, Noe, so is going to be also in my days, the days that I live in presently, which was the first century. And then he goes through and explains it. He said, they did eat, they drank, they married wives. They were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all. So we got to ask ourselves a question. When he said they did eat, they drank, they married, given in marriage, who is he talking about? Who would be the they right there? So once you go to Genesis chapter 6, right? So first he said they were given into marriage. They married and was given into marriage, right? So we're going to go to Genesis chapter 6, verse number 3. That the sons of God, having seen the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, took to themselves wives of all whom they chose. So we have here that they were married and given into marriage in the days of Noah. Once you go into the days of Noah, according to Moses, the ones that were married and given into marriage was dealing with the daughters of men and the sons of God. So, once you fast forward it, we find out that the sons of God was in fact Israel. As time progressed, we get to more of the Torah. We find out that the sons of God in Genesis 6 transferred over into Israel being the new sons of God. And then we find out in the New Testament and the New Covenant, the church became the sons of God. But in the Old Covenant, Israel was the sons of God. And before that covenant came around, before the flood, the priests, those of Seth, and etc., that had this heavenly knowledge, they were the sons of God. So the sons of God were marrying and given into marriage. So the sons of God in the first test in the first century, in the New Testament, that will be married and given into marriage, those sons of God would actually be Israel. So now we have the marriage set up. So they were married, right? So he's talking about the sons of God. He will be talking about those of Israel in the New Testament. So just like the old days is happening in the new days. The old days was talking about a scenario. The new days is talking about the same scenario, just using different people. The new sons of God, the new Noah, the new flood, the new judgment, the new destruction, and etc. But it all what happened first, or with the antitype, what Moses brought, expounded on the story of Noah. So now we got the marriage, right? But we also find out that what else did he say they do? He said they ate food, right? So once you go back to Luke 17, and Luke 17, verse number 27, it said they did eat. So I'm here to tell you the same they will go through the same thing. So we're talking about the sons of God, we're talking about the daughters of men, and all of those around them. Because regardless how anybody wants to look at it, when the sons of God have children, their children are also sons of God. This is why when Christ said he was the son of God, they was like, oh, he make himself equal to God. Because the son is exactly what the father is. The son of David is equal to David. Solomon was equal to David. This is just how they looked at things back in the days. So here they did eat. That's what Christ stated. So we're going to go here. We're going to go to the book of Jubilees. And in the book of Jubilees, chapter 5, verse 2, look what it says. It says, well, I'm going to read 1 and 2. And it came to pass when the children of men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters was born unto them, that the Malachim of Yahweh saw them on a certain year of this Jubilee, that they were beautiful to look upon. And they took themselves wives of all whom they chose, and they bare unto them sons, and they were giants, and Torahlessness increased on the earth, and all flesh corrupted its way, alike men and cattle and beasts and birds and everything that walks on the earth. All of them corrupted their ways and their orders, and began to devour each other, and toilsomness increased on the earth, and every imagination of the thoughts of all men was thus evil continually. So, notice here, what did they do? Everything on the earth began to devour each other. Notice here, we find out that they did eat, right? They did eat. So now we find out that they began to devour each other. So let's see if we can find a segue here. I think it would be in Deuteronomy 28 first, and I don't have this one in my notes. I just thought about it. So let's see if I can find it here. So we have it in the Noah's under that the men, they started, and the animals, they started eating each other. So here you go to Deuteronomy 28. Let's see here. We go to verse number, let's see here. All right, no man, smite that grow blind, no man shall save thee. Give me 1 second, I'm going through it real fast. Oppress the sight of men, the needs, the soul of the food. I'm going through it real fast. 1 second. They shall have the wonder. They shall thirst nakedness. They shall eat, and he shall eat the no. the fruit of the destroyed, receive all the gates. Here we go, right here. Verse 53. This is dealing with the curses, Deuteronomy 28:53. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and thy daughters, which the Lord has given thee, in the siege and in the straitness wherein the enemies shall distress thee. So we have here in the curses that they would start eating their own flesh, the flesh of their sons and daughters. They will eat themselves. I guess we can read verse 54 and 55 too. It says, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil toward his brother and toward his wife of his bosom and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children, whom he shall eat, because he has nothing left in him in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. So we have it here that they themselves will become cannibals. The same thing that happened inside of the book, in the days of Noah, they became cannibals, right? And then we can also make it correlate with the book of Revelation. You go to Revelation 17. I know people want it to be about America, but once you read Revelation 17, what's happening, you understand this is Jerusalem being destroyed by the Roman Empire. But once you go and look at some of the plagues inside of the book of Revelation, you can clearly see it coming from the curses in the law. You can clearly see it coming from the Song of Moses. You can clearly see it coming from Deuteronomy 28:15 all the way down to 68. It's a mirror. And only the curses only came upon Israel. They was going to come upon the other nations if Israel would have not transgressed. But Israel transgressed all up until the new heaven and the new earth came. So anyway, Revelation 17 verse 16. Look what it says right here. And the tin horn which thou sawest upon the beast, thee shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. Eat her flesh, burn her with fire. This is the same ideal that happened in the days of Noah when the Nephilim, the sons of God, when they were fighting amongst themselves in warfare, it resulted in final cannibalism. So when Christ said they ate, this is what they're talking about here. It's dealing with the destruction. It's dealing with the war, the iniquities. They ate. What else did it say? Once we go back to Luke 17. Luke 17:27. It said they did eat, they drank. So let's find out about them drinking now. So they ate, they drank. So once we go to the book of Enoch, right? So let's go to the book of Enoch. Once we go to Enoch, let's see here. One second. Enoch, first Enoch, chapter 7. We're going to read verses 4 and 5. It says, the giants consume all the work and toil of men, and when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. So that's the eating right there. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, to devour one another's flesh, and drank the blood. So in the days of Noah, they began to drink each other's blood. In the days of Noah, they began to drink. I mean, they began to eat each other's flesh. So this, I mean, it makes perfect sense when you got Christ righting the wrong, and Christ is telling them, "Hey, you guys eat of my flesh and drink of my blood, because I'm righteous. So eat of my flesh. I'm the bread of life. Drink of my blood. This is my blood in the new covenant. Eat of me and drink of me." It makes perfect sense because they were eating, according to Moses, they were eating of each other and drinking of each other, sin more and more lawless behavior. The stuff that you, what the result will be, which was going to be of the spirit. But here we have that they were drinking each other's blood, right? So here, once we go into the book of Isaiah, right? Once we go into the book of Isaiah, Isaiah 49, give me 1 second. Isaiah 49, let's see here. Isaiah 49:26. It says, "And they that afflicted thee shall eat their own flesh, and they should drink their own blood as new wine, and shall be drunken. And all flesh shall perceive that I am the Lord that delivers thee, and that upholds the strength of Jacob." So this is a new covenant theme right here. So what is he doing? The people that afflicts those children, those sons of God, getting ready for the new covenant when the Lord is delivering them, they were going to eat their own flesh and drink their own blood, just like what was going on in the days of Noah before that salvation occurred. So when he said they ate, they drank, they were given into marriage. You can clearly see it coming from the days of Noah and how the wicked people was doing all of this. And Christ stated that the wicked people in his days would do the same thing, but they would do it another way. So now, instead of the way that they're drinking and eating and giving into marriage and etc., they're making all of these wicked covenants with each other. Oh, they're making all these wicked covenants with Rome and etc. They're devouring each other flesh, not giving paying heed to the widows or the orphans. They're taking from their brothers, not showing love, which is a part of murder and all that other stuff. So these people will be considered eating, drinking, given into marriage, all of those manners of wickedness that happened on the days of Noah. It was happening again in the days of Christ, just another way. So once we go now to Luke 17, once again, because the story gets even better. So Luke 17, verse 28 now, because we're not done. It says, "Likewise, also as it was in the days of Lot." So now, for people to understand what Christ is doing here, notice Christ's first statement was, "For as lightning that lighteth out on one part under heaven, shineth also into the other part under heaven, so shall also the Son of Man be in his day. But first, he must suffer many things and be rejected of this generation." So then he goes into the days of Noah. And what happened in the days of Noah? A destruction. And then he says, also in the days of Lot. What happened in the days of Lot? A destruction. In the days of Noah, it was a remnant saved, everyone else destroyed. In the days of Lot, It was a remnant saved and everyone else destroyed. So who was saved? The family of Noah. Who was saved? The family of Lot, except Lot's wife. So we got Lot's daughters being saved, the family of Lot. So we have the families being saved, a remnant being saved, but everyone else being destroyed. So we have a salvation and a destruction, salvation and a destruction, a fleeing and a destruction, etc. So that's what we have here. So now he says, likewise, also in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. So now we find out in the days of Noah, what was they doing? They were eating, drinking, marrying wives, and being given into marriage. But in the days of Lot, they were eating, drinking, buying, selling, planting, and building. So now you can see here in the days of Noah, they were more concentrated on, like, it's kind of like a party scene, because we know that eating and drinking is all what you do during marriage. During a marriage ceremony, you eat, you drink, and then you have the bride and the bridegroom, right? So this is all about coming together, building a family, but they were being wicked. So here we have them eating and drinking, so them coming together, but also they're building and planning and planting. And well, you got them building, you got them planting, you got them buying, you got them selling. See, in the days of Noah, you don't have no buying and selling. You don't have no planting and building. You just got them coming together. So now it's saying in the days of Lot, they got a little bit more advanced. So not only did they do the wedding thing, but they also did more of the economy thing. So now, economy wise, now they are building and drinking and planting and selling and all of that stuff. So we can see in the days of a Lot, they have became kind of more economically civilized per se. So now let's continue to go. Let's continue to see what happened in the days of Lot now. So we're going to go to Antiquity of the Jews, because a lot of people don't know the backstory of exactly why the Most High destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So we're going to find out why the Most High destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So we're going to go to Antiquity of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 11, Section 1. So this is what's happening and the narrative of what happened during the days of Lot. It says, chapter 11, how God overthrew the nations of the Sodomites out of his wrath against them for their sins. It says, about this time, the Sodomites grew proud on account of their riches and great wealth. What is this dealing with? Economy. See, in the days of Noah, it wasn't really about economy. It was about them coming together, being wicked together, them fighting amongst each other, and etc. So in the days of Noah, let me say it again, in the days of Noah, they were building, they were fighting amongst each other. They was coming together and fighting amongst one another. In the days of Lot, they had came together and became wealthy. So you don't see the fighting amongst one another in the days of Lot. In the days of Noah, you got the fighting amongst one another. In the days of Lot, you don't have the fighting amongst one another. But we're going to see where it went wrong at. About this time, the Sodomites grew proud on account of their riches and great wealth. They became unjust towards men and impious towards God, insomuch that they did not call to mind the advantages they received from him. They hated strangers and abused themselves with sodomitical practices. God was therefore much displeased at them and determined to punish them for their pride and to overthrow their until there should neither plant nor fruit grow out of it. So in the days of Lot, their problem was they had the unrighteous actions amongst themselves with all of their practices and etc. But on top of that, they hated strangers. So you can see what happened when the two angels came in into the city, to Sodom and Gomorrah. When the two angels came in, you see why the big ruckish was. Who are these gentlemen? Bring them out so we can do our lust amongst them and etc. Because they hated strangers. It wasn't because they were so quote unquote homosexual that they just needed to have a lust fit. That's not what it was about. They hated strangers. And when any stranger came in, they was unjust towards them. So you got in the days of Noah, they fought amongst themselves. You got in the days of Lot, they was doing wicked stuff, unnatural stuff amongst each other, but now they're hating strangers. So they're hating the other people. So in the days of Noah, they're fighting amongst themselves. In the days of Lot, they're fighting everyone else that comes in amongst them. So this, you see how it was messed up? First, they couldn't get along with themselves. That's in the days of Noah. In the days of Lot, they couldn't get along with others. And they were so prideful about what their own cities had accomplished that they would not even bless an outsider with the same blessings that they had. They try to keep it all amongst themselves. And if a person came in and did anything, well, if a person came in, they would do any and every wicked action toward that person. So now, let's go to the book of Ezekiel just to show you uh, something similar stated, right? So you go to the book of Ezekiel. Let's see here. Ezekiel. Go to Ezekiel 16. Let's read Ezekiel 16. We're going to read 49 through 50. It states, "Moreover, this was the sin of thy sister Sodom. Pride. She and her daughters lived in pleasure, in fullness of bread, and in abundance. This belonged to her and her daughters, and they held not the hand of the poor and needy, and they boasted and wrought iniquities before me. So I cut them off as I saw fit." So I guess I got to, well, it's not really a rephrase. They, once you read the book of Jasher, it kind of actually explains what they was doing to like the poor and stuff. So by that time, they killed a lot of the poor out. So that's, I guess that would be the beginning of the infighting. But as a whole, people knew if you was a stranger, don't go into Sodom and Gomorrah. And they was not going to help any outside people either. So their problem was pride and all of the pleasures that they did amongst each other, right? Nowadays, they was more about fighting. They was more about taking, killing, and etc. Here in Lot, they was a little bit more civilized in that manner, but they still was wicked with all of the pride that they had, with all of the being hateful towards strangers, and etc. So Christ was letting it be known that in the days of Lot, right? So this is what he says also. This is Luke. So back to Luke 17. Luke 17, verses 28. Likewise, also it was in the days of Lot. They did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them. Right? And then I'm just going to read the next verse. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. So, what did he just state? He stated, so I just clicked on something I shouldn't have clicked on. Okay, that clear. That definitely didn't clear it out. I'm good now. He stated that the day that he was going to be revealed was going to be like the days it was in the days of Lot. And what happened in the day of Lot? They were so prideful. What happened in the first century? These Jews were prideful. This is what John the Baptist was warning them about. Don't think to say that you got Abraham as your father. The Lord is able to raise from these stones, son. They was very prideful, and this was John the Baptist's way of trying to humble them. And then they hit Christ with the pride statement. These were the ones who followed him. We have never been in captivity. And he was like, if you do sin, you are captive to sin. So they were very, very, very prideful. The pride was ridiculous. I mean, it was. Then Christ actually expounded how they love sitting in the best seats in the house. They had those what's it, philanthropy, whatever they call philanthropies. I don't know the name of it. Those long fringes thingies. It was longer than it needed to be, and etc. So these people will walk around when they fast. They always had their faces all turned inside and out to let everybody know that they was fasting. They did a whole lot of things for outward glory, very prideful, and etc. So this is what was going on, just like in the days of Lot. But he says, right? Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. What's going to be like in the day when the Son of Man be revealed? It rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them. Just like that, that's what's going to occur in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. So, we got to get a little bit of backstory on what that is talking about. So, I want to go actually to the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah so we can actually see what that was supposed to look like. So, you go to Antiquity of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 11, Section 4. So, this is where it states right here. But God was much displeased at their imputed behavior, so that he smote these men with blindness and condemned the Sodomites to universal destruction. But Lot, upon God's informing him of the future destruction of the Sodomites, went away, taking with him his wife and daughters, who were two and still virgins. For those that were betrothed to them were above the thoughts of going, and deemed that Lot's words were trifling. God then cast a thunderbolt upon the city and set it on fire with its inhabitants, and laid waste the country with the like burning, as I formerly said when I wrote the Jewish war. So we find out that actual thunderbolts came from heaven upon the city and set it on fire, and the whole country was laid to waste by the burning of the fire. And we have in the Bible, they actually call it fire and brimstone, right? So when the thunderbolt came from heaven and set everything on fire, and we got in Luke 24, for as lightning that lighteth one part under heaven, shining to the other part under heaven, so also shall it be shall also the Son of Man be in his day. So we have the imagery about the lightning bolts, and etc. But also we got the imagery that when it rains fire and brimstone from heaven, that's when the Son of Man is revealed. Let me say it again, because I know Matthew's explanation of the coming of the Son of Man, not understanding that Matthew is writing an audience that understood Hebraic literature. So he's writing an audience that understood all the nuances of Hebraic literature. But here in Luke, who's talking more to that Grecian audience, he's saying it another way. He said, when the fire and brimstone is raining from heaven, and that day, that's when the Son of Man is revealed. So when you see the fire and the brimstone coming from heaven, then that's the Son of Man being revealed. Let me say it again. When you see the fire and brimstone, or what Josephus said, the thunderbolts, the lightning bolts, come from heaven, that's when the Son of Man is revealed. So once you go to the book of Revelation, chapter 9, verse 18, we have this. But these three was the third part of men killed by the fire, by the smoke, and by brimstone, which issued out of their mouths. When you have the fire and brimstone, that's the day the Son of Man is being revealed. So in Revelation 9, when you have the third part of men being killed by fire and brimstone, that's the day the Son of Man is being revealed. But verse number 16 and 17, well, 15 through 17 is telling us that this is actually the army coming up on Jerusalem. The army coming up on, I know it's Jerusalem, but if you don't want to say Jerusalem, the army coming, bringing forth fire and brimstone. That's the day the Son of Man is being revealed. So in Revelation 9, you don't have nothing about the Son of Man coming here. You just got the army coming. And that army is bringing fire and brimstone. But according to Christ, just like the days of Lot, when the fire and brimstone came, that's when the Son of Man is being revealed. So obviously, this is when the Son of Man is being revealed. It don't have to say, then the Son of Man came, because he already told you what elements to look for dealing with his revelation. So then once you go to Revelation 14, we're going to read 6 through 9. It says, and I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, fear God and give him to glory. For the hour of his judgment is come. So we have judgment right there. The hour of his judgment is come. In the days of Noah, we have a judgment. In the days of Lot, we have a judgment. So now we have a judgment coming here. Notice in the days of Lot, the judgment was dealing with fire and brimstone or a thunderbolt. And Christ said at that same day, that's when the Son of Man is going to be revealed. So this is a revelation or a revealing of the Son of Man. For the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of water. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. What's that? What did they do? They ate, they drank, they were given into marriage, they built, they sold, they planted, they bought. So now the same shall drink. This is the drinking right there that he stated. The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without the mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. So you got that right there. So when is this happening? When Babylon is falling. So you have a falling of Babylon. You have a judgment with fire and brimstone. And they're being judged in what? The presence of the Lamb. So we know the Lamb is Christ. So that's Christ's second coming. So Christ's second coming is around Babylon falling and the introduction of fire and brimstone. And we have that being spoken of in Revelation chapter 9, when actually the armies came that brought the fire and the brimstone. So Revelation 9 don't bring up the presence of the holy angels and the presence of the Lamb, because the Lamb and the holy angels are a spiritual presence. Meanwhile, Revelation 9 is talking about a carnal army symbolically coming in to destroy Jerusalem. So you have it here. You have fire and destruction comes revealing the Son of Man, or fire and destruction is around when the Son of Man is revealed. So anytime you have uh, fire and destruction being introduced in the New Testament, think about the revelation of the Son of Man coming and etc. So now, I had people come in and go out and come back in and go out. You want to add anything before we continue, brother?
Nah, go ahead, brother. You're doing good, man. I'm loving every bit of it. I'm liking how everything coming all together. Yep, I see it.
Okay, thank you, my brother. So now let's get ready to um continue this ship. So now we have, let's talk about this judgment a little more, right? So now I'm gonna read out of the JPS. Anybody don't know, that's the like the closest thing we have to the Masoretic text in the that's available to us. So this is like the 10th century Masoretic text. This is the closest thing that we have. So I'm going to read the last of the Old Testament out of that. 19, right? Genesis 19, verse 31. This is what I want to read first. It says, hold on, let me make sure this is it. Oh yeah, this is about Lot. And the firstborn said unto the younger, our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. So we're going to couple that with Revelation 20. We're going to read 11 through 12. And this is what it states. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat upon it, whose face the earth and the heaven fled away. And there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were open. And another book was opened, which is the book of life, and the dead was judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works. So, why did I read that? Why did I read that? Well, we have Lot's daughters, right? And with Lot's daughters, They thought with that destruction that happened on the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities, they thought that every person had been destroyed that lived. Like in the days of Noah, they thought that every person had been destroyed. Through that one destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, they thought that everybody had been destroyed. So that was a judgment scene. So once you go to Revelation 20, what do you have? You have a judgment scene because you have heaven and earth passing away. So in Genesis 19:31, they thought that everyone had been destroyed. They thought that everyone has been judged, right? So that's one thought. Hold on, give me 1 second, y'all. That's one thought. So that's one thought. So when we go to the flood narrative, hold on, y'all. 1 sec. All right, so that's one thought. So once we have Genesis 6, Genesis 6, hold on, let me get there real fast. 13, it says, and God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. So you have in the days of Lot, right? His the end of all flesh had came upon them. And then in the book of Revelation, you have it introduced of the heaven and earth fleeing away. So that means end of all flesh had to come, and the heaven and earth had to be destroyed also. So we have three destructions that occurred where it seemed that all things were destroyed, but in reality, we find out that all things were not destroyed. It was just a big destruction. And in the days of Noah, we have all flesh being destroyed. He said right here, I will destroy all the end of all flesh is become before me, and I will destroy them with the earth. But then we find out that all flesh wasn't destroyed, neither was the earth. But this destruction was considered all flesh being destroyed. This destruction was considered the earth being destroyed. Just like the daughters of Lot was considered all flesh was destroyed during that judgment. And now in the book of Revelation, we have it stated that heaven and earth was destroyed, right? And there was a judgment of all flesh. But let's continue reading Genesis chapter 9 now, verse 11. And I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of the flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. So ask yourself a question. Was the earth destroyed during the flood? Even though the Bible states the earth was destroyed during the flood, was all of the earth destroyed? Even though the Bible states that all flesh was going to be cut off by the waters, was all flesh cut off by the waters? Just like Lot's daughters thought all mankind was destroyed during that judgment, was all mankind actually destroyed during that judgment? Even though it was
even though it seemed like it was a worldwide judgment, in the eyes of Lot's daughters, it seemed like that destruction inflicted or affected the whole entire population of man. So even though they thought it from their point of view that the whole population of mankind was affected, was the whole population of mankind affected? So when you have it described in the New Testament that the heaven and earth was going to be destroyed and all mankind was going to be affected by the judgment, was heaven and earth actually destroyed, and was all mankind affected by the judgment? So if all flesh wasn't destroyed, wasn't cut off, and if earth wasn't destroyed in Genesis during the days of Noah, and Christ said, just like the days of Noah, so will the Son of Man be, will all flesh be destroyed when Christ was to return? Was the heaven and earth to be destroyed when Christ was to return? If it was in the days of Noah, when all flesh was destroyed and the earth was destroyed, was heaven and earth supposed to be destroyed just like then, in a similar in like manner? Or was it going to be really all heaven and earth being destroyed with all the people, literally or carnally? And in the days of Lot, once again, through their eyes, it seemed like the whole world was destroyed. But we find out it really wasn't like that. That's just the way that they perceived it. So when you go to the New Testament, when they are perceiving the heaven and earth is going to be destroyed, when they are perceiving all flesh is going to be judged, through their perception, through the way that they described it, is that really saying that all heaven and earth was going to be destroyed and all mankind was going to be destroyed or judged? Of course not. So that's not what's going on there. But now we have reached the point of today, using that first destruction to prove that the Messiah in the New Testament is actually the God of the Old Testament. So now we have finally made it there. So I didn't even have to add that part about Lot, but since Christ brought up the part about Lot, I included the part about Lot. But I wanted to stay with the notion of Noah. The things that happened in the days of Noah also happened in the days of Christ. Noah actually have a judgment of all flesh and a destruction of the earth. Just like Christ got the judgment of all flesh and the destruction of the earth. And just like in Noah's day, we find out that all flesh wasn't destroyed. His elect wasn't destroyed. The animal set aside wasn't destroyed. In the New Testament, we find out that the elect wasn't destroyed. All things in Christ's heritage was set aside and not destroyed. Just like in the days of Noah, only the wicked were destroyed and carried away by the flood. Just like in the New Testament, only the wicked was destroyed and carried away by the flood of the Roman army. So we have the same scenario. The point is the story of Noah, all the way up until Noah and the destruction of the first earth, is what the destruction of this heaven and earth in the New Testament was all about. Just as from Adam all the way up into the destruction of the old earth, the first earth, right? We have Christ being the new Adam, and we have Christ coming in, and we have a destruction of that heaven and earth, and then we have an everlasting heaven and earth that wasn't going to be destroyed. So we have, and let me show you what I'm talking about. So you got Adam all the way up into the destruction of the old heaven and earth, what represents Christ all the way up into the destruction of the heaven and earth, bringing in the new heaven and earth. Adam did not return. Christ returned inside the hearts of mankind, and etc. So I don't want to confuse anybody too much what's going on. Hopefully we see the correlation that there was a destruction under first Adam, there was a destruction under the second Adam. The only difference is when the first Adam doing that destruction that happened under him, the same earth. Well, let me actually show you what I'm talking about. Let me show you what I'm talking about, and then we're going to go on. Once you go into the book of Josephus, right? Antiquity of the Jews, right? I'm going to see if I can find it real fast. Let me show you how the first century Jews and before those, this is what they felt the flood accomplished. So let's see if I can find it real fast. I think this will kind of help it a whole lot more. Let me see here. Page 66. All right, so this is what the Lord, according to them, wanted to accomplish. Let me see if I can find it here. All right, so right here. This is War of the Jews. And we saw Antiquity of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 3, Section 2. This is what, according to these priests, what the Lord wanted to accomplish with the flood. Now God loved this man, talking about Noah, for his righteousness. Yet he not only condemned those other men for their wickedness, but determined to destroy the whole race to make another race that should be pure from wickedness, and cutting short their lives and making their years not so many as they formerly lived, but 120 only. He turned the dry land into sea, and thus were all these men destroyed. So the dry land became sea. This is pretty much destruction of the whole heaven, earth, creating a new heaven and earth where land comes back out of the sea. This is what we see in days Noah when the water recedes once again from land, which is what happened in day three, I think day three. But anyway, so we have the point of the flood was to destroy all of the wicked men and to make a race, a new race of man that was pure from wickedness, and everyone was supposed to come from him. That was the goal. Let's say it again. According to the priests, the goal of the flood was for the Lord to destroy all the wicked people off the earth and make another race that was pure from wickedness. So the same goal was in the New Testament. He destroyed all of those wicked sons of God and made a new race of people, which was the church. And during that day, everything on earth was pure. Just like in the day when Noah made the atonement, everything was pure. So wickedness still arose, just like now, wickedness still arose. But at that one time, everything was pure. And unlike the days of Noah, when all men thoughts were evil continually, now we have people whose thought is not evil continuously. Now we have an elected amount of Christians or followers of the way who does not think of evil continually, unlike the first earth destruction. So now let's get ready to show the revelation of Christ using the destruction of the old heaven and earth. So this is found on ycliftonz.org, right? So this is the genealogy found in Genesis chapter 5, the whole Genesis chapter 5. So according to this website, and you can look it up yourself, the name of the genealogy
that Moses used is actually, well, sorry, the translation of the genealogy that Moses used in Genesis chapter 5 is actually telling a story. So you go to Adam, it means man. All right, so we got it here. Shalom, everyone that's in the room, and etc. So right here, we got Adam means man. Seth means substituted or put. Enos means mortal. Kenan means nest or dwelling. Mahaliel means praiseworthy God. Jared means descent or come down. Enoch means to initiate or teach. Methuselah means at his extent of time, a shooting forth. Lamech means lost. And Noah means quiet, peace, or rest. So now this is what it states. Putting these meanings together, we have a brief summary of the future gospel. So this is what Moses, because I know people want to take these stories as literal as possible. I know. But this is the spiritual inclination of what Moses did in Genesis chapter 5. So as you interpret the name of each one of those guys in Genesis chapter 5, this is the meaning behind those names when you put them all together. It says, man puts on mortality as his dwelling. So the praiseworthy God shall come down to teach that at his extent, fullness of time, the lost may have peace and rest. Let me read it again. So, all of the genealogy in Genesis chapter 5, we know that names mean things to the Hebrews, right? So once you go through the genealogy left in Genesis chapter 5 and you decipher what each one of those names mean, you put them together, and this is what the story is saying. So let me say it again. Man puts on mortality as his dwelling, so the praiseworthy God shall come down to teach that at his extent, fullness of time, the lost may have peace and rest. So once you decipher the names in Genesis chapter 5, it tells the story from Adam to Christ. It says, man puts on mortality as his dwelling. That's him leaving the garden after he eats from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And it says, so the praiseworthy God shall come down to teach. And we find out in John 1:1, in the beginning was the word was with God, and the word was God. We find out in John 1:14, that word became flesh, came down and tabernacled with man. So now, so the praiseworthy God shall come down to teach that at his fullness of time, the lost may have peace and rest. And then this also says, in this website, it also states, there's also a message in the name of Methuselah, signaling that at his maturity or death, a bursting forth of some missile would occur. The year of his death was in fact the year when the fountains of the great deep burst open, Genesis 7:11, causing the worldwide flood. So that's the name of Methuselah itself. But here we have the understanding that the genealogy talked about the whole mission from Genesis to the book of Revelation. But if people think this is wrong, and this is what, brother, that's wrong, you're wilding out. Paul taught the same thing. Paul taught the same thing. So now we have from Genesis 5, man puts on mortality as his dwelling, so the praiseworthy God should come down to teach that at his extent, fullness of time, the lost may have peace and rest. So now let's look at what Paul taught after meeting Christ and getting the Holy Spirit. You go to Galatians 4, right? Now listen to Galatians 4. This is what it says. We're going to read 1 through 7. Now I say, and I'm going to actually break down all of this. Now I say that the heir, as long as he is a child, differeth nothing from a servant, though he be Lord of all. So you have a servant and you have a child. These are the two uh, elements in Galatians 4. But is under tutors and governors until the time appointed of the Father. Even so we, when we were children, were in bondage under the elements of the world. But when the fullness of time was come, God sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. And because ye are sons, God had sent forth the Spirit of his Son into your hearts, crying, Abba, Father. Wherefore there are no more a servant, but a son. And if a son, then an heir of God through Christ. So now, let's make all of this go together, right? So Galatians 4 and 1. You got the heir, and then you got the servant. So once you go to Genesis chapter 1, when you go to Genesis 1, Genesis 1:26, and God said, let us make man according to our image and likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the flying creatures of heaven, and over the cattle of all the earth, and over all the reptiles and that creep on the earth. And God made man according to the image of God, he made him. Male and female, he made them. And God blessed them, saying, increase and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the seas, and flying creatures of heaven, and all the cattle of all the earth, and all the reptiles creep on earth. So, Genesis 1:26-28. This is the Son who is the heir. He's given him dominion over all of the earth. The ones made in the image of God, these are sons of God. These are the ones that are the heirs, right? So, in Genesis chapter 2, because I know people want it to be the same Adam, which is not. In Genesis 2 and 7, and God formed the man of the dust of the earth. So this man is dead until he is breathed, until he get breathed into his face the breath of life, and then he becomes a living soul. So he starts off dead and becomes a living soul. After the image of God, you cannot be dead at all. This guy was formed out of the dust of the earth. The guy in the Adam in Genesis 1 was made after the image of God. The Adam in Genesis 1 indeed was the heir. The Adam in Genesis 2, the one that was dead and became alive, he was the servant. How do we know? Because you keep going and it says, and God planted a garden eastward in Eden and placed there a man whom he had formed. No, not that one. Verse right here, 15. And the Lord God took the man whom he had formed and placed him in the garden of delight to cultivate and keep it. So he is a servant. His job is to cultivate and keep the garden. Once again, in Genesis 2:15, that man's job was to cultivate and keep the garden. The one Genesis 1, his job was to have dominion over the heaven or over the earth and the animals. So one is considered a servant, which is not a bad thing, and the other one is considered an heir. So we got two elements. We got the heir in Genesis 1. We got the servant in Genesis 2. They're both in presence of the Lord, however. So you go back to Galatians And I know people, I know Americans view scriptures totally different from how ancient Israel view scriptures. I use ancient Israelite understanding, not modern day American understanding. So now it says, but it's under tutors and governors until the time appointed of the Father. Even so, we, when we were children, were in bondage under the elements of the world. So this will be dealing with the different laws of the world. That will be including the law of Moses. But when the fullness of time was come, God sent forth his son. So once you go back into what the names that meant, what the names of the genealogies meant in Genesis chapter 5, look what it says. Man puts on mortality as his dwelling, that's him becoming a servant. So the praiseworthy God shall come down to teach that at his fullness, at his extent, at his fullness of time. So what happened at the fullness of time? God sent forth his son. Here, the praiseworthy God comes down and teach at the fullness of time. So they're both saying the same thing. At the fullness of time, God sent forth his son. According to Genesis chapter 5, at the fullness of time, the praiseworthy God shall come down to teach. And what is he teaching according to Genesis 5? He's teaching the lost so they can have peace and rest. What is happening in Galatians? At the fullness of time, God sent forth his son, that's the praiseworthy God, made under a woman, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law. So those that was under the law, what is that called? I'm sorry about that, y'all. Those that were under the law, what is that called? According to the story in Genesis 5, those that were under the law is called the lost. See, in Genesis 4, 4, and 5, God sent forth his son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law. He came under the law to redeem those under the law, that they may receive adoptions as son. Why did they need to be adopted as a son? Because first they were servants. They were to cultivate the garden. But now they become adopted as sons, made in the image, so they can become heirs. Now they can have dominion as Christ have dominion. Now they can enter into the body. So they were lost. They were under the law. They were lost. They were under the schoolmaster. So we have he redeemed them under the law. They were lost. And what did he say in the genealogy? What did the genealogy reveal again? See, there's a story in Genesis 5. Why come ain't nobody talking about this? How can you be Torah only and not understand what this is talking about? You can't, and once you break down Genesis 5, you can't be Torah only. Because where did the God come down in Torah or because I guess y'all can say Mount Sinai. I'm pretty sure y'all would. But it said, man's puts on mortality. The praiseworthy God come down to teach at his extent the fullness of time, that the lost may have peace and rest. But to come down on Mount Sinai, they definitely didn't have peace and rest. Eventually, they got blessings and curses, which has nothing to do with rest. Because when they got cursed, they was never at rest. But we can show you what Christ actually stated. But it says, the praiseworthy God shall come down to teach at his extent, which is the fullness of time, the lost, these are those under the law, that they may have peace and rest. Peace and rest. And we have here that Christ came to redeem those under the law so they could become adopted as sons. And when they become sons, they become heirs, allowing them to enter into the rest of Christ. So now let's see if we can find what's being said here. And then we can get ready to end. Let's see here. We're gonna go to Christ's words. This is what Christ stated in John 10:10. Christ stated, let's see here. The thief cometh not but to steal and to kill and to destroy. I come that they might have life, and they sorry, let me say it again. I come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. So Christ came so they can have life, but not only life, he wanted them to have it to the fullest extent. And then Matthew 11:28. And this is Christ's words. Matthew 11:28. Make sure I'm still picking up. Matthew 11:28 states, let's see here. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And once again, what did genealogy uh, reveal? The genealogy records, what did it reveal when you put them all together? Man puts on mortality as his dwelling. So the praiseworthy God shall come down to teach that at his extent, fullness of time, the lost may have peace and rest. That's exactly what Christ taught. He was going to give them rest. Christ taught them peace. Don't think that Christ taught peace. All you got to go to is Matthew chapter 5. Let's see if it Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. The people that put on the adoptions, what Paul was talking about, the heirs, the peacemakers are called the children of God. So what did Christ come and taught? Peace and rest. What does the genealogy in Genesis chapter 5 states? That after man puts on mortality, the praiseworthy God will come down and teach mankind about peace and rest. That's it. So that's the destruction from Adam to Noah, which is the first destruction of the earth, according to Moses, from Adam to Noah. Once you look at the genealogy between Adam to Noah, which is the first destruction, it explains the mission of Christ who came at the last destruction. It said at the last destruction, the praiseworthy God would come down and, and teach peace and rest. Christ came down before the last destruction of heaven, earth, and taught peace and rest. So I don't know how you skip Genesis chapter 5 genealogy, the understanding of it, but Christ is right there. His mission and everything that he came to do is found there. So that is all that I have to state. Thank everyone for listening in. If anybody got anything they want to say, raise their hand. We done had people come in and come out. I know that it's late. I did this class kind of late, so my apologies. But I was able to get it in. So once again, this is Elvin Israel from the Assembly of Sound Doctrine, Chandler. My website or my YouTube channel is AOSDCHANDLER. It's also my picture on Clubhouse. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe indeed. It's a lot of information there from the ancient Israelite mindset, not the modern day Israelite mindset or the Westerner mindset, but the ancient Israelite mindset how it's supposed to be. So, thank you all for listening in. Now, on Clubhouse, if you want to say anything, raise your hand. But I'm finna get ready to end it if nobody has anything to say. So, thank everyone for listening in. Does anyone have anything to say? I'm gonna give it about 30 seconds. All righty. Well, may the Most High bless everyone that listens to the replay, as well as everyone in the room. Thank y'all for coming in the room. I know once again it was late, but I appreciate any and everyone that the Lord sent this way in order to receive the information that He has put on my heart, as well as people inside of RPK's heart to bring toward everyone. I hope y'all stay in shalom. I hope that your family, friends, and etc yearn for the Most High as much as you do, as much as we do. Y'all have a blessed night, and until next time, keep the Lord first and stay in prayer. Y'all have a blessed night.